Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Voices for Change 2.0, the only podcast that focuses on mental health while mixing in movies, music, books, sports, and pop culture. Here are your hosts, Rebecca and Joe Lombardo.
Hey guys, hope you can hear us. Welcome to Voices for Change 2.0. Having a little bit of audio difficulties, but hopefully things are good. We're getting the thumbs up from our producer.
Up, so that's a good sign.
That is a good sign.
Welcome to the show this morning, everybody. We hope that you're having a good weekend.
Yeah, and it's going on the middle of May, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's flying by.
Yeah, so I shouldn't really say it's crazy, should I?
No, it's okay. I'll let it pass.
You'll allow that one?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
You didn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean no vulgarity by it. So, anyway, we are happy you guys decided to tune into our humble little show, the show that can.
Yeah, we've got a really good lineup for you today. We're doing two shows back to back. So right after our 11 o'clock interview, we're going to segue into our 12 o'clock interview.
Yeah, so stay tuned.
Yeah, so keep hanging on with us. It's a special day where we are observing Mental Health Awareness Month here in the States, and I'm not entirely sure, I should have checked this beforehand, but Mental Health Awareness Week is effective very shortly, I believe, in the UK. So mental health.
Yeah, we're gonna hashtag keep talking mental health. See what I did there.
We hope that you guys are using the hashtag too, along with the Mental Health Awareness Week and Month hashtags on Twitter.
Yep.
Very important that we're getting the message out there. So just keep it up. We're appreciative of anyone that uses our hashtag, and hang in there.
Yeah, really. Reach out to people if you need to. If you're struggling, call the crisis lines. Text on the crisis text line. Talk to a buddy. Talk to a family member. Talk to whoever you need to if you are having a hard time now or all throughout the year.
Especially with tomorrow being Mother's Day.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, some of us don't have our moms, physically in their life anymore, which I would fall into that category.
Yeah.
So there is a group called the Mental Health Crisis Angels. MH Crisis Angels is the handle. And they're doing something really, really interesting for everybody on Sunday. Message them for more information, but they're having a Mother's Day, and they're calling it a sanctuary, Mother's Day Sanctuary, where you can go in and talk to other people, and there'll be, fun things to do, and, just different ways to keep your mind off of what you might be struggling with on this Mother's Day. So definitely keep that in mind if you are in need of companionship tomorrow. They're a great group of people. I've been helping them out a little bit, and we're just really, really supportive of them. So
yes, indeed.
But
and Beck told me not to say anything about being sick, but I'm just going to say this: it moved into my head, so I sound all nasally, and I do apologize. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. So for today, to start with, we have a very special guest. I've been following her hashtag Dump the Scales campaign, and it hits home for me. I am very appreciative that she's putting all of the effort into this particular campaign, because I still suffer with eating disorders. When I was in high school, it got really bad in high school, and I've often struggled with, I've been struggling just even the last couple of days, even wanting to eat or, being able to wrap my head around the fact that I need sustenance in my body to survive. It's been difficult. We're going through some stuff, so having a hard time with it. But enough about me. She her name is Hope, and we're really excited to have her because she's a wonderful advocate. She has done some really, really positive things. I've seen some of the pictures of the I think she's been on some TV shows and some other radio shows, and she's done a lot of really great work to help raise awareness and the stigma around mental health, or mental illness, rather. So let's just really welcome her to the show.
Yeah.
Welcome, Hope Virgo.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm really pleased to be here.
We are pleased to have you with us. And I would say good morning, but, where you're at.
It's 4 o'clock, isn't
it?
Yeah. It's strange.
Yeah. So we appreciate you taking the time for you in the middle of your Saturday, for us, the kind of the beginning of our Saturday, to talk to us and to, shine a light. I can't speak today. Shine a light on what you're doing and who you're helping and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so let's, you said you didn't have any questions a little bit ago. Have you developed any?
I don't think so at the moment. I probably will get loads throughout.
Pardon?
I'll probably get quite a lot throughout, but nothing at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right, well, we'll start off with the question that we ask all of our guests at the beginning of the show, and that is, where does your mental health journey begin?
So my journey with mental health probably began when I was about 9. At the time, I didn't realise that it was mental health, and I don't think I ever did realise up until I was about 16, 17. But when I was 9, I had a real issue expressing emotions. So whether it was happiness, whether it was sadness, there was something in my brain that didn't really click. And my mum thought the solution to all of this was to go to therapy. So I had this 1-hour therapy session when I was 9 for about 6 months every week. And I remember going to these sessions, not really understanding it, not really knowing why I was there. And also kind of, I guess, as a young person, you're lumped into these therapy sessions and you spend a lot of time thinking about the kind of things you should be sharing and the right and wrong answers to questions and thinking about what your friends would do in those situations.
Okay. So that went on for about 6 months. How did that end? I mean, did just, were you like, this isn't helping me, or did it help you and you're like, I don't need this anymore?
No,
what happened after?
Yeah, it didn't really help me at all. And I think, I don't know why I only did it for 6 months, if I'm honest. I think maybe my mum thought that was kind of the time to do it for, and then after that something would have changed, which is no fault of my mum at all. But I think people didn't really understand mental health at all when I was growing up. And so I then went back to school, kind of carried on through the rest of junior school, not really expressing emotion, but not really seeing it as a big deal. And then when I was 12, 13, I then developed anorexia as a way of coping, as a way of kind of controlling things. And also because I didn't feel like I was getting any sense of value or purpose out of my life, the anorexia seemed to do all of that for me. And I relied off that voice in my head telling me what I should and shouldn't be doing kind of every single day. And I think that was where my mental health just began to worsen over the next kind of 4 or 5 years, even though, again, at the time I didn't really realise that anything was the matter with me. I didn't really understand it. And I was in a big kind of denial state around the whole situation and the whole thing.
It's like a control thing, isn't it? Anorexia, sort of like other things are out of control around you, and you can take charge of your anorexia, sort of, and until it blows up and you can't control it anymore. But for me, I know that it was sort of a control issue where I finally felt like I was in control of something. Do you think you experienced that as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it was partly a control thing for me. I think it gave me control over kind of life. So when I was 12, I had quite a dysfunctional family, and I was trying to fix everyone around me, and I was also sexually abused. And I think the combination of kind of a dysfunctional family and having an experience like that, I hated any sort of emotional stuff. I felt completely out of control with my life. And the anorexia definitely gave me that sense of control back, as well as helping me to switch off from the realities of growing up, the realities of arguments, and also the realities of trying to deal with a load of guilt and kind of shame that came with the sexual abuse.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry that you went through all that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, that's it's never a great thing to have to experience. And I feel bad, so I'm sorry. You know, when did you decide to start telling your story?
So I only decided about 2.5 years ago, I think. So back in 2016, I relapsed. So I ended up being hospitalized for my anorexia when I was about 17, and then came out of hospital just after I turned 18. So in the UK, when you turn 18, like in America, you turn into an adult. But in the UK, the problem is if you're in NHS services as a child, you cannot stay in that same service when you turn 18. So it meant that I got pushed to the back of an adult waiting list to get any support. So I fell through that transitional gap, which is something that happens a lot in the UK, but it's also quite frustrating. But after I came out of hospital, I pretty much managed my recovery for 8 years. And then in 2016, my grandma passed away, and I really struggled with all of the guilt and all of the grief that came with her dying. And that was when the anorexia started to come back. And I relapsed probably just like for 4 or 5 months, and then ended up trying to access services and couldn't access services, and then ending up trying to find a way to recover on my own and with kind of my own network of support. But once I came through that kind of recovery period and that relapse period, I realized that there are a lot of people out there who really struggle with their mental health, and people who go through ups and downs with it, and then people who kind of beat themselves up when they start to relapse because they think everyone else is totally fixed and together. And so I wanted to share a really honest story of actually what recovery looks like. I also wanted people to realize that just because someone is a healthy weight, it doesn't mean they can't struggle with food and with kind of having an eating disorder mindset. And so I decided to share my story basically to try and challenge these two aspects of life and two things that really mattered to me. And it started with writing a book about my personal experience. And then off the back of the book, I started doing a lot of speaking engagements and a lot of work in schools. And then it kind of just went from there, really. And I think for me, it's been really challenging at times. And I love most of what I do, but there are ups and downs with it. And there's times when I've been really badly told on Twitter or had really nasty comments made when I go and do sessions with schools or something. But actually, because I like what I do, I think it keeps me going. And I think the more people we get talking about mental health and sharing their stories, the easier it then is for everyone else to start opening up. And it will all help just tackle that whole stigma side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Go ahead, babe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit more about your book, the title, and where it can be purchased.
So my book is called Stand Tall Little Girl, and it is the entire kind of, I guess, my life journey up until probably 2017. So it talks about my childhood, then about my illness, what made me ill, and then also my relapse, but then looking as well at key points throughout my life of things that really helped me to get back on track with my recovery. So things like exercises that I did when I was in hospital. I talk a lot about what it was like traveling while in recovery, but also my mum writes a couple of the chapters of it too. So to try and get that parental perspective on things and to try and raise awareness of what it's like to be a parent of someone who's struggling with an eating disorder as well. And then it ends with kind of practical things and like ideas of what I do to manage my well-being, but also things that I think we should be trying to incorporate into everyone's lives, actually, regardless of where you sit on that mental health spectrum. They're things that I think will work for a lot of people.
That's really cool. I like that you had your mom contribute to it as well. You know, part of the thing with us starting this podcast was, you know, the original intent was to have the perspective of someone who is afflicted and someone who is a caregiver. So you had multiple perspectives on different things, and that's so beneficial, because and I'm sure you've seen this from responses you've gotten from your book. I know Beth got this with responses from her book, where you've got people that are dealing with the same issues, and they're coming to you and saying, hey, thank you for addressing this. But you've also got people not dealing with those issues, but they have a loved one in their life that does, and they're able to come to you and say, hey, thank you for putting this out there. This gives me a little bit more perspective on what my loved one is going through. So that's really cool that you did that, and I think awesome that you've got different tips and tricks that you did to help you with your recovery.
Yeah, why don't you talk to us a little bit about those?
Yeah.
What are some of those tips?
So I think for me, a massive turning point in my recovery was an exercise that I did in hospital. So when I went into hospital, I was in this complete denial phase, and I think a lot of people with eating disorders go through this, where you don't think you're ill enough to have an eating disorder, you don't think you look like you have an eating disorder, and so I had a whole distorted body image. And on the Friday night, after being in hospital for 3-4 days, one of the nurses came in and she got me to draw how I imagined myself on these massive pieces of brown paper. She then got me to lie down on that exact same piece of paper, and she drew around the outside of me. And then she got me to stand up and look back down at these pieces of paper. And the images were just so, so different. It was ridiculous how much my body image was distorted. And at first I thought she'd lied to me, that she'd somehow tricked me. But actually I had this realization at that point there was something really wrong with my brain, that in the way that I viewed myself. And it's things like that now that actually, although I don't do that exercise on like a day-to-day basis, obviously, it's things like that that actually help me think about the evidence of the fact that I don't look like I've got an eating disorder, but actually what the anorexia tells me about my body image being distorted is all rubbish and it's all wrong. So it's about reminding myself that what I see in the mirror isn't my reality. The other couple of things that I do quite a lot of, so I use exercise in a real positive way to help me in my recovery. I know that this is quite a risky thing to do for some people, particularly if you've had an eating disorder, and part of your eating disorder has been about that obsession with exercise. But again, for me, when I was in hospital, I wasn't allowed to exercise for kind of 10 months, and then I was allowed to start again. And by starting to exercise slowly and in a supportive environment, it allowed me to change my whole understanding around exercise and how I view it, and the fact that I don't use it to punish myself anymore, but actually I use it to give me that kind of thinking space and that headspace. And it's also helped me to become, I think, more body confident. So I now see my body in a different way. So I view myself probably in a different way as well through the exercise, just getting completely confident in that whole area of my life. The other things I think which I always suggest, which I think are really important, is things like knowing what situations trigger you and might affect your eating, or if you've got other mental health problems, what might cause them to be affected that way. So whether it's social situations or family situations. And when you know what your triggers are, it's about trying to have ways to cope with those situations when you get to that point. So a trigger for me is going home. And I really struggle going home because my family is slightly dysfunctional and there's always a lot of food around, and I just find it quite stressful. So how I cope with that is me and my mum have a conversation a couple of days before I go home, and we talk about the food that's going to be there. We talk about who from the family is going to be there. And just by having a bit of a plan in place, it allows me to feel much more confident in actually dealing with going home in that situation, but also helps my family feel less worried about me going home and feel less stressed about it as well. And then I think the big one, which I know you guys kind of touched on slightly at the start, is that whole thing about just talking about how you feel. And this is something that I do find very difficult at times. But again, I think it's something that we all need to try and get better at doing. And it's about finding people that you trust and you feel accountable to have that really honest conversation with. I think quite often when you talk very openly about recovery, and I'm not sure whether you found this as well actually, is that actually people think that you're immune to getting a mental illness again, or you're immune to getting a relapse, or your recovery is just in this perfect position. But the reality is for a lot of us who talk openly about recovery, we have this added pressure to be well all the time, but actually we might be struggling a bit. So I think it's more how you manage yourself on those bad days, but making sure you have people around you who you can be completely honest with and feel able to be honest with, so you can get that extra support.
Yeah, that's huge having that.
Yeah.
You know, it really is. You know, and I think it's brilliant that you talk with your mom before you head home. You know, being aware of your triggers and what's good for you and what's bad for you, and what situations that you need to avoid in your own best self-interest. That awareness is key. It's huge in being able to maintain. Yeah, that's brilliant. Everything you said was brilliant. You know, it just is. You know, and it's so right on. You know, we've had to do similar things ourselves with various family situations because they can be triggering for Beck and or myself. And you know, being able to have that person you can talk to when she's having a bad day, she'll call and she'll text me and she'll say, hey, you know, I'm not having a good day today. This is what's going on. You know, and you know, you mentioned that, you know, you have a difficulty talking about it at times. And one thing that we've found over time is the more that you do talk about it, the more you find that inner courage and inner strength to continue talking about it. And then it becomes easier. And then before you know it, it becomes a second nature kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
no, definitely.
Good. You know, good on you for pushing through that and doing that, because, you know, that's what you have to do to survive, and that's what we all have to do to survive.
Well, we are going to take a very quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. So in the meantime, enjoy Matt Stern, One More Night.
Time I won't idealize you. I won't throw my hands up over my head and cry. Still I know you are the one, and I still taste you on my tongue, and I would be fortunate to lie with you one more night. Take much time now. I just take one look inside your eyes and I'm flying. What am I still doing here? I know you will soon disappear, but I still hold on to spend time with you one more night. One more night. My days are so much longer until you come over. I'm hot under the sheets, you know you make me sore. I toss and turn all night till you come closer. Feeling you inside me over and over. Still I know you are the one. I still taste you on my tongue, and I would be fortunate to lie with you one more night, one more night, one more night, one more night, one more night.
Hey, welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. We are so glad that you have decided to join us today.
Absolutely.
We are speaking with a lovely young lady that we're having a great conversation with, Miss Hope Virgo.
And she has an awesome British accent, and I love it. So, and for her, it's like, you know, not an accent. For her, us talking is probably an accent, but oh well.
All right, so let's hop back into the questions.
I left that awkward, didn't I?
Yeah, you sure did.
I am sorry.
You should be.
I am. I apologize.
We've been doing this how long?
Long time.
All right, I'll forgive you this time.
You know how I feel about British accents. I love British accents.
Yes, dear, I understand.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move along with our questions here. So we were talking a little bit about your sort of coping mechanisms for staying strong when you're struggling. But prior to the break, do you have advice for anyone that's newly diagnosed?
So I think when you're newly diagnosed with an eating disorder, one of the hardest things is that your weight will change, and quite often for people you have to put on weight if you're struggling with anorexia, and you will feel really guilty about that. And for me, my biggest worry when I started to recover was that my weight would shoot up and it would just never ever stop shooting up, which sounds ridiculous to other people, but that was one of my massive worries. And I meet a lot of people who also worry about that. So I think my first bit of advice is to trust that actually your weight won't keep going up. That will not happen, and you have to trust the people around you that. I think also that you have to realize that it's going to be unbelievably difficult to get to a really positive place in recovery, and at times it will feel completely emotionally and physically exhausting. And I know that sounds really negative, but there's no point painting kind of this easy picture of it. But I think it's about realizing that the eating disorder is stopping your life. Your life will be on hold until you manage it, until you push yourself further forward with it. And you have to think about those short-term and long-term goals when you're in recovery. I know for me, the anorexia convinced me that I was completely invincible and that life would just carry on and I could do exactly what I wanted to do. But actually the reality is there were points in my illness, and particularly when I hit rock bottom, when my life was quite literally just put on hold. I spent a year in hospital, and my life was on hold for that whole year. And a huge amount of time in hospital was spent actually thinking about those motivations for wanting to get well. So thinking about the fact that I wanted to go traveling one day, I wanted to get a job, I wanted to do my running again. And the biggest one for me is actually I really want to have children one day. And it is all of this stuff that I think when you're really struggling with an eating disorder, you have to think about all of that stuff that you want out of life, and stuff that if you start battling, yes, it will be hard at times, but you can get to that place where you can recover and where things will be okay. And I think as well, actually, for those around you, it's about reminding that person that you're supporting that just because they're starting to eat and starting to maybe process things a bit differently and start to maybe look healthier, it's actually about reminding them that you know they're still struggling, and just because they're eating, you know that not everything's fixed and not everything's going to be okay, but you know that they're trying really hard to get to that positive point.
Yeah, having that support system and someone supporting you is a key thing, and having them realize, like you said, just because you're eating again doesn't mean that,
you're better.
Right. They still need to be vigilant and still need to be there for you. Whenever Beck's struggling with her stuff, I'm always, is there anything I can do? Is there anything you need? And even on good days, I'll ask her that, because you never know. And that's an important thing. Communication. And I think that's one thing that we've established over the couple of years of doing this show, is that communication is key. Having a good rapport with your loved ones, with your caretaker, with your doctor, your therapist, your priest, whoever. You need to have an open channel of communication. Because all the different illnesses are going to tell you lies, and you need to be able to get out of your head, and yeah.
I was curious, Hope. When you were you diagnosed with any other mental health conditions as well?
No, just anorexia. But I think,
okay.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people often get diagnosed with multiple things, and for me, no, it was just the anorexia. But I think the things like my mood were often affected massively, and I got quite anxious around food times and things like that. But just the anorexia.
Okay.
Which is probably a religion in hindsight that it's only one. However awful that
was. Do you want to ask that, or I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. So you brought up something that is currently being heavily debated here in the States. Over there in England, you guys have nationalized health and, dealing with the NHS over there. And, right now it's a hotly debated topic over here. A lot of us are proponents for Medicare for all, and which would be a similar thing to your NHS.
Yeah.
And do you find that getting the treatment that you need when you need it is difficult, or only at times difficult, or is it something that's very manageable? How is it actually working within that system for you with battling a mental illness versus a physical situation, like, say, breaking your arm?
So for me, I fully support the NHS, and I think we need to have free healthcare, and I think that's vital. But I think the problem is that the NHS is very overstretched, and because of lack of funding, and I think quite often with mental health, there isn't as much money going into it, and it's a fairly new thing that's funded, and people don't have as much training in it and as much awareness. It means that it is much harder to get support. There are currently waiting lists that are months, if not years long, which means that as soon as you can actually access that support, you're probably going to be at crisis point, or people end up ending their lives. And for me, I tried to get support when I relapsed, but because I wasn't underweight enough, there wasn't any support available for me through the NHS. So I ended up going on medication to try and tackle my eating disorder that way, which was a bit of a controversial way of doing it, but it worked for me to kind of get me back through my relapse. But I think for a lot of people, you are left at that point where you are at crisis point, and there just isn't enough money, there's not enough beds, there's nothing really available. And I think the problem with the way the NHS does their mental health services, while some of them are very good, and we do have some that focus on things like early intervention, a lot of them do not focus on that. And we wait until someone is at crisis point and needs a bed, so then they go into hospital, and then they end up staying in hospital for a much longer time because they find it safe and secure, as opposed to treating them out in the community where it will probably have a much faster recovery time.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. That was
a live show for you.
Yeah, and having us drop out like that was definitely not our way that we wanted to do it.
No.
But don't.
Uh-oh. We got some comments from the peanut gallery here.
Yeah.
So let's jump back in. I can't actually, if we had so much going on, I can't actually recall where we left off. But
I need to take care of her for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead,
you take over.
Yep. Joe's going to step away for just a minute. As we mentioned to Hope earlier, and some of you may be aware, we have an ill family member, a furry family member, and we unfortunately have to take really close care of her because she can't walk right now. So that's all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to go, too crazy with it, but we got to do everything we can for her, and unfortunately that means he's got to step away for a minute. So I will continue the questions with our lovely guest, and we really appreciate your patience during our struggles here.
That's all right.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about your Dump the Scales campaign, which is doing really well. I'm really happy for you. It looks like you are really making some big strides. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I launched Dump the Scales last July. And the reason I launched it was because I got turned away from services for not being thin enough to access that support. But I realised after kind of coming through my relapse and sharing my story that this isn't just something that happens to me, but it's something that happens to hundreds of people every single day across the country. And it's just ridiculous that we still live in a society where people think the only way to have an eating disorder is to be sick thin. And so I'm working with the government in the UK to currently try and change this. So we launched a petition back in July, which has now got just over 70,000 signatures. And we've had a We dropped it at number 10 Downing Street a couple of weeks ago, and are just currently waiting on a formal response from the Prime Minister. But you can still add your signature and your voice to this. And I think for me, something that is really important is actually trying to get more stories to show that actually this is an impact. This is something that's actually impacting a lot of people. And if we don't challenge this and don't change this, then people in the city just keep struggling, they're going to keep suffering, and they're not going to actually be able to get any of that support that they really need.
Yeah, that's amazing. You're taking wonderful strides with that. I'm really happy for you with that. I plan on taking part in it too. I just haven't had the pep in my step to get out there and take a picture with the photo. But so that's how people can get involved, right? Is taking a photo. Are there other ways?
Yeah, so I guess there's a couple of ways. The first one is to add your name to the petition, so sign it and share it. And what I'm encouraging people to do is share it with at least 5 other people to try and keep that momentum going around it. There's also a Jump the Scales logo, so people are taking loads of really awesome photos with it. Even people's pets are getting involved in taking photos. You've got children getting involved. You've got like elderly people getting involved. So a real mix of people showing either just kind of them holding the sign or putting the sign in their profile picture, or people who are actually acting out what Jump the Scales means to them. So I had a really cool one actually, where someone had graffitied all over their own set of scales at home, showing that these scales now gave them no power, that they were dumping scales, and things like that. And then the third way is for people to just get in touch and share their stories. So whether that's getting in touch with me directly or sharing it on your own social media and hashtagging Jump the Scales so that we can find it and reshare it. And that can be in the form of kind of writing a picture or, again, doing a video or something like that. We can continue to keep applying that pressure on the government to actually change this.
Yeah,
Cool.
it kind of blows my mind. There's just some really, really idiotic policies out there. I mean, but conversely, they if you want to go and get weight loss surgery, you can't go if you're not quote unquote fat enough.
Yeah.
So you can't get help if you're not thin enough. You can't get help if you're not fat enough, which is all kinds of fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry that I missed part of the conversation, and I don't know if this came up at all, but one thing that I have to deal with my job is, because I drive for a living, I have to have DOT certification every year. And one of the things that gets taken into account is BMI, body mass index. And it's ridiculous. I mean, I understand what they're going for with it. If people are in a certain range are overweight and are susceptible to sleep apnea, they could fall asleep while they're driving, stuff like that. That's fine. But the numbers that are associated with BMI are just, it's not realistic. You get somebody with like 2% body fat and they're going to be classified as obese based on BMI, and just like if they're really muscular, for example, like a bodybuilder type guy. So it doesn't paint a proper picture, at least not to me, so I don't know. I just, that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, no, I do completely agree with that. I think as well, like with athletes and stuff like that, like quite often marathon runners or whatever have maybe got a higher BMI because they're so muscular. So I think it is quite a fashioned and dated way of doing things. And I think particularly with eating disorders, it then makes them like into this like real simplistic kind of thing when actually they're really complicated. So I think
exactly.
That's my biggest frustration is it's like we look for that physical sign and we look for the physical part of the illness when it is a mental illness and we need to be treating it like a mental illness.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a body dysmorphia thing. You talked about it yourself. What you're seeing in the mirror. Your brain is telling you one thing, and the reality is something different. And it's a matter of putting that together and having it kind of resolve itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's kind of not a great explanation.
That's okay. Pardon me, excuse me. I generally hope, if you haven't listened to us before, generally about this time in every show, I start to lose my voice. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it tremendously. So just bear with me here. We're fun today.
We're fun. We're a fun
day.
couple. Yeah. It's a blast being us.
Yeah, for sure.
Know. People envy us.
They're so green with envy.
Yeah.
All right. So
or vomit.
Vomit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how pervasive eating disorders are, and if you can kind of, nail it down a little bit. I don't know if you're able to, but Hope, if you can kind of talk about who most frequently struggles with eating disorders.
So there is in the UK 1.6 million people who struggle with eating disorders. So across the world, that's obviously going to be an even higher and extreme number. I think the scary thing about the stats with eating disorders is quite often people aren't diagnosed, people aren't accessing support, so then they're not kind of counted for in the statistics. So there's like a lot of people with eating disorders who live functioning with an eating disorder that don't ever access services or any support, even though they're probably not that happy and they're struggling quite a bit with food themselves. They do predominantly affect teenage girls, but it isn't just teenage girls. They do affect boys, they affect older people, they affect people from all different backgrounds. And I think, again, because we associate eating disorders just with teenage girls, it means that boys find it much harder to actually ever reach out for that support because they don't think that anyone would diagnose them with an eating disorder. And particularly actually something with athletes and runners is we often say if you exercise a lot, you lose your period. And so you can always spot someone who's maybe not having enough nutrition and exercising too much, they don't have their periods. But actually boys don't have periods. So it kind of, again, adds to that level of stigma that boys won't have an eating disorder because they don't get periods anyway. There's that whole other level of complication that comes with it.
Yeah, I have to say, men have it a little bit rough when it comes to mental health and even eating disorders. I know that there were certain male figure skaters that came out over the last year that indicated they suffered with eating disorders and trying to stay thin and working out profusely, and men unfortunately got the short end of the stick when it comes to eating disorders or mental illnesses, because it's harder for them to come forward and like they talk about online all the time, they're told, to man up. Although I've never felt that way. I've never said that to anybody. I can't imagine doing that, but
it's out there. It happens. I've seen it.
I know it does, but I can't imagine doing it myself.
Yeah, the stigma for men is that you're thought of as weak, and you have to be this big strong man. You have to protect people, and how are you going to do that if you're so-called weak? You've got a deficiency, mentally, or different things like that, and it's a pride thing partly, and so it's a lot harder as a man coming forward, and especially with like an eating disorder. You never hear about guys that have an eating disorder. You never hear about men that are anorexic or men that are bulimic. It's just not talked about. And again, that comes back to communication. And our hashtag, Keep Talking MH. Being able to have the wherewithal, I guess, to say, hey, I need to talk about this. I need to seek help. So if you're a male and you're listening, by all means, if you're suffering with anorexia, if you're suffering with bulimia, if you're suffering with depression or bipolar disorder or any number of things that you feel that if you say something to somebody, you're going to feel less than.
So, yeah.
I'm here to tell you that's not the case. You're not going to be less than a man if you seek out this help. If anything, you're an inspiration and you're a
warrior,
an example. A warrior. You're taking control of what is afflicting you, and we're proud of you if you take that step. And we support you. So.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel about this, Hope, but I have found that gradually, as I got to know people, especially on Twitter, in the mental health community on Twitter, that it's starting to feel like a more positive environment, and it's starting to feel easier to be able to come forward and say, hey, I'm struggling today. Is there anybody out there that can talk or whatever the case may be? Do you feel like it's more accepted now that you talk about it than maybe it was even 5 years ago?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think there is less judgment around it. I think particularly on social media, I do find it very refreshing how honest and open people are, and people do feel able to be mostly honest with each other and with themselves online. I think there is something that stops people always being honest, and something that stops some people reaching out for support. But I guess, like what you guys have said, the more we talk about things, actually the better it will be. And I think sometimes as individuals, when we're in recovery, and obviously it will depend at what stage we're at, it's about us taking a bit of ownership on ourselves. And yeah, like if we take that urgency, we take that kind of like responsibility, we can start to tell people exactly how we feel and say this will really help us in this situation. And I think sometimes we need to start doing more of that when we feel able to. So I know for me, I have people around me that I'm able to, mostly, not all the time, but quite often say to them, actually this will really help me today. And I think we all need again to find those people that we can tell them what will work for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So we're getting down to our time here, but how can people connect with you online?
If they're interested in participating, or even they just want to talk to you about your book, how do we connect with you online?
So my Twitter handle is Hope Virgo. So do kind of take a look at that and feel free to contact me on that. I do try and go back to everyone. So if you've got any kind of specific questions on anything that we've talked about today, or just generally on eating disorders and my campaign or mental health, do feel free to send them over and I'll do my best to get back to you. Also on Instagram, so Hope Virgo 1, and then the campaign is, if you just search hashtag Douglas Scales, then it'd be awesome as well if you guys could again kind of sign that, share that, and kind of then that'll be another way for you to be kept updated on where we're at with the campaign and what's happening next and things like that.
Cool.
Okay, great.
So that's awesome.
What is coming up next for you?
So next week is Mental Health Awareness Week in the UK. So from today up until next Saturday, I'm in kind of back-to-back sessions, so media and doing lots of talks in corporate hospitals and schools over the next week or so. And then my main focus over the next couple of months will continue to be the campaign. I think it's frustrating in one sense how long it's taking to make real concrete kind of commitment and progress with it. And I have to keep myself momented with it and keep kind of moving forward with it. But I think a big focus will be trying to look at that and actually look at what else we can do in that space to make that change happen and to make the government see that it is a priority. So continuing to work a lot on that.
Okay.
Cool.
That sounds awesome.
That is very cool. Yeah, you're gonna have a busy week this week, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think.
Well, we've had a great time talking to you today, despite our mild technical issues. It's been good talking to you, and you might want to keep listening. Our next guest is also someone who has dealt with anorexia, which is, I didn't plan it that way.
Yeah,
it
just kind of worked out like that.
Yeah, it got a hold of both of you, and it's similar for each. So that's kind of what our body image is our thought of the day today, I guess. So
yeah.
But yeah, we're really happy that you're able to join us. We'd love to have you back again if anything new comes up, and you want to come on and talk about it. Just you know where to find me. Just give me a shout.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been really fun.
Absolutely. So stay on the line, and we'll be listening to Blake MacGyver's Mother.
Frigid, torrid, loving, me.
Mother told me, listen, child, my beauty is the sea, and my anger makes it wild. A star will burn until it dies. My earth will shake until I make all my children cry. Mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother held me when I cried. Mother froze and watched me die. Mother said unto the king, your life is marked, ordained to be an offering. She followed him until the end. Upon his grave a risen soul she would defend. Yeah. Mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother held me when I cried. Mother froze and watched me die. Mother called across the block. You crave my love. Come hither, let me at that. Her glamour had you hypnotized. She took your soul, but in the end she compromised. Oh, yeah, yeah. Mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother held me when I cried. Mother froze and watched me die. Mother, mother,
She gave you life, she gave you strife.
mother, mother,
Born and raised, she saved her name.
mother, mother.
She's Notre Dame, she's Vietnam.
Mother, heal me. Mother, nurture me. Mother, please don't torture me. Mother held me when I cried. Mother froze and watched me
Hey, y'all. You're listening to Voices for Change 2.0 on a wonderful Saturday morning in May.
This is part 2 of our show.
Yeah.
So thank you for sticking around.
Yeah, stick around. We got another hour of awesomeness. Did I really just say that?
You did.
Oh, my God.
You laid it out there.
I am sorry. We like Blake McIver so much that we're going to listen to another song.
Yeah, and it's called Gets Better.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. I might be wrong too. But sorry to Blake McIver.
There you go.
I see a child without a friend. I see a soul who thinks that it's the end. A broken will's the hardest thing to mend. But try to understand. I know you're hurting. I can see your pain. But you've got a future where there's no more shame. You're a miracle in spite of what they say. And you see a bright new day, 'cause it gets better. It gets better. It gets better. They said that you would never belong. They lied and told you that you're weak and they are strong. They put that loaded metal in your head. But I can help you understand. Yeah. I know you're hurting. I can feel your pain. But you've got a future where there's no more shame. You're a miracle in spite of what they say. And you'll see a brighter day, 'cause it gets better. It gets better. It gets better. 'Cause you'll find some you are not alone. The days just time will be better than fine. Love is right there, just let go of your cares. I know that you are almost there. See that bright new day. Cry with me and say, I once was hurting, consumed with pain. But now it's the future and there's no more shame. You're a miracle in spite of what they say. And today's that brighter day. And it gets better. It gets better. It gets
It does get better
It does indeed.
every day on Voices for Change 2.0. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. This is Joe. The beautiful, wonderful woman sitting next to me is my lovely wife, Rebecca.
Thank you, honey.
You know I love you.
I love you too.
You guys gonna throw up yet? So really quick,
We are.
tomorrow is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just want to say that really quick. We are in the process of connecting to our next guest. So in the meantime, we're going to throw one more song at you. Please stay tuned in. This is You Belong by Brandon James.
back and fighting the law of attraction. Never the one taking action. Years of denying this beauty inside. Sleeping, scared of the fear they'd speak, and I never knew I was a beacon, waiting and waiting to light up the sky. When you're down and out, don't know what to do. What I found for me, I can be for you. If it comes from love, it'll never ever be wrong. Never ever be wrong. Never ever be wrong. Never ever be wrong. You belong. If your heart can still beat, you belong. You just gotta keeping it on. Take a hold of your truth. It's right inside of you. What's wrong? And your heart will still carry on. Oh, I promise it won't be long till you know in your truth. It's right inside where you belong. You belong. You belong. You belong. You belong. Breathe. I know what it's like being lonely. Telling me you're not the only one. I'll be here holding your hand. When you're down and out, don't know what to do. What I found for me, I can be for you. If it comes from love, it'll never ever be wrong. Never ever be wrong. Never ever be wrong. Never ever be wrong. You belong. If your heart can still beat, you belong. You just gotta keeping it on. Take a hold of your truth. It's right inside of you. What's wrong? And your heart will still carry on. Oh, I promise it won't be long till you know in your truth. It's right.
Hey guys, welcome back to Voices for Change 2.0. We, as always, are glad to have you with us for the second half of today's adventure.
That's right. To quote the song you're just listening to, you belong with us.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, where's the cheesiness coming
I
from?
don't know. We're gonna have to have a talk about that
I
later.
am sorry.
We really have to have a chat.
Yeah, I think all the cold medicine's getting to me
Yeah,
a little bit.
you're counteracting my sarcasm, and that's not working for me.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I am sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So
All right. Well, our second half of the show is really, really important to us. As we mentioned before, our first guest is someone that deals with anorexia, and our second guest is as well.
yeah,
And
it's Body Image Saturday.
yes, Body Image Saturday. Very well said.
Thank you. It's one of the few things I can say well right now until I get congested again.
She is really, what's the word I'm looking for? She's really popular on social media. She has a YouTube channel that is phenomenal, and she talks about, her struggles, and she tries to learn from other people's struggles, and she's just really a really great lady, and I really like her a lot, and I'm really glad that I finally got to get her on the show. We've been trying for a little while, but things weren't falling where they needed to fall. But now we've got her, and I'm very excited. So please welcome Miss Anxiety herself, Beth.
Yay! You guys are going to make me cry. That was the most beautiful introduction. You make me sound so good.
only speak the truth. That's what we do. We speak truth here. We're truth speakers.
We're truth tellers.
Yes, truth tellers.
That is beautiful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Do you have any questions for us before we jump into ours?
I don't think so. Just go for it.
Okay.
Okay. By the way, everybody, you're not hearing things. This is our second UK person on the show today. So.
And they both got through.
It's exciting. Yay.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
Because I've been planning these double Saturdays for a while now. So, yeah, I'm so grateful that everybody's been able to connect, even though we've even had audio issues. So.
Yeah, I think on the last show, I think it was Skype. I don't think it was us. I don't think it was Scott or anybody else. I think because that little logo thing that popped up, that was a Skypey looking type of logo.
Yeah.
Thanks, Skype.
It's all right. We got through it.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
That's right.
Pardon me. Beth, we'll start off with the question that we most often ask our guests, and I say that every week, but it's the truth.
Yep.
And that is, where does your mental health journey begin?
Ooh, good question. I first started to notice that there was maybe something not quite right when I was about 10 years old, and I was in school, and I started to notice that I was withdrawing a lot from kind of the social aspect. I wanted to stay at home. I didn't want to interact with anybody. And then there was one fateful event that happened that caused probably one of the biggest things I've ever had to deal with. And one Christmas, me and my family, all of us, we got so sick. It was the most horrific thing ever. It was horrible. And eventually that kind of experience led to me developing something called emetophobia. And that was intense. And that basically, for anybody who doesn't know, because I say it like it's such a normal word, but it's actually really not, emetophobia is the intense fear of vomiting or becoming physically sick. I got so ill that time that I just became terrified of the idea. I avoided going out. I didn't like to touch anything really. I preferred to wear gloves. I'd shower a lot. I would just avoid anybody and anybody. So it was really intense, and I guess that's where it all began for me, really.
Wow. It's funny that you mentioned that, because there was a couple of things that you mentioned that really I'd like to address. The first one be having I can't pronounce the word, so I'm not even going to try and say it, but having a fear of vomiting. For me,
emetophobia.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I have this thing. I don't throw up at all. So if I'm throwing up, I'm really, really sick. I mean, Beth can attest to that. And I partly have this fear of it. I just So that really hits home for me, that there's an actual phobia of it. I
think that you wouldn't be. I throw up a lot, to be honest. I get migraines and I throw up. I have no control over it.
She has no qualms.
No, there's nothing I can do to change it. So, but he's always very supportive, with me. So I would think that if you're suffering from that, you would need to avoid me as well when I'm going through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then the other thing that you mentioned is something that Beck went through as well. When you were young and you had this, not wanting to go to school, feeling terrible, not wanting to be around people. She went through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Sure did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I would wake up in the morning and tell my mom every time I had a headache and a stomach ache, and I wasn't lying. I did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more centered around anxieties from school, or whether or not I completed the homework, or if there was a test, or or if someone I got teased a lot. I had my maiden name is kind of a strange last name, and I was full figured, Although, admittedly, not as full figured as I am now. If I could go back to that, I'd be in heaven. But, you know, I got made fun of a lot for my weight and, you know, just my last name, and just picked on all the time. So I had trouble getting up and going to school, even though I had a lot of friends and that all went fine. But there were just people that like to mock me.
Yeah.
All through middle school and in high school.
Because children are mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds so hard. I can't even imagine. Like, I definitely had a similar thing to you, for sure. And I think sometimes parents, you know, it's well documented that kids don't really want to go to school, but they don't ever think about, oh, there might actually be some kind of thing underneath this. It's not, probably just not laziness, you know?
Right.
Yeah, there's actually a thing popping around. I've seen it come up in my Facebook feed. I don't know if you have or anybody else has, but it's this thing where it says that, you know, kids, when they don't want to go to school, you know, it might be a form of anxiety, but instead of the kids saying, I have anxiety about going to school, they say, my stomach hurts.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think it's fascinating because it really hits home that there's a lack of education about anxiety and you know, different mental illnesses and whatnot, you know, at a very young age. And, you know, can you imagine how huge it would be if we were kids and we were able to say to our parents, hey, I'm having some anxiety about going to school today.
Yeah.
You know, and being heard and being understood.
Yeah,
Oh,
that would be
absolutely.
something.
You know?
Yeah, that would be incredible. I kind of wish that I'd have been able to do that. I remember when I first started seeing my therapist, and she said that I wasn't feeling anything. All I was feeling was tense. So that was my word. I would just go around and say, I'm feeling really tense today. And it was only later on that I realized that it was anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense.
And you also struggled with anorexia, correct?
Yes. Yeah, that kind of came around because of the emetophobia. They kind of interlinked, which was a bit weird. But apparently it's really common. It's a common kind of aspect of emetophobia as well. So eventually, my anorexia didn't really start out the way that you think anorexia might start out. It wasn't kind of, oh, I want to look this way or I want to keep my weight under control. It was more, I'm terrified that if I eat something, I am going to vomit and get sick. So I basically just tried to control my diet through that. And, oh, God, I lost a lot of weight. I was very, very skinny. But eventually it did kind of manifest into anorexia, the way that you would expect it. So it became about body image and it became about what I looked like. And I used to wear really baggy kind of clothes so that people wouldn't look at me or be able to see my body, because by that point I was really tiny.
I'm sorry that you went through that.
Yeah, for sure.
That sucks.
Yeah, it was really hard, but I think it was something that I've definitely grown through. It's really strange because some people always say, like, would you go back in time and take it away if you could? And I'm never sure what to answer for that question at all. Without it, I wouldn't be the same person I am today, but also without it, there would have been a lot less pain. So it's a tough question, right?
Right.
That's a tough one we always end up wrestling with too, you know, because Beck's been through it. I've been through different, but been through it, and you always wonder, well, if I can go back to this point, would I change it? If I could do this, would I change it? And you know, it used to be years and years I would spend playing I like to call it the what if game, and I find as I'm getting older that I can't waste my time doing the what if game anymore, just for myself. You know, it's okay, this is the reality, this is what's going on now, what's my next step, you know?
Yeah, I love that. That's so powerful as well. It kind of, you can't live with regret, can you?
Yeah, you know, if you think about it for too much, then you're stuck. You know, you're not moving forward, you're not living your life, you know? So that's been the hard thing we've been wrestling with. You know, Beck mentioned that we're dealing with some stuff with one of our kitties, and we started kind of playing the what if game the other night, and I had to stop and I'm like, look, we can't do this because we're not going to know. We're not going to find an answer at this point.
Not going to make it better.
Yeah, at this point, what's the reality and what do we need to do going forward? And that's what we're doing. And, it's kind of liberating a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that for sure. I think your brain can sometimes, you can get into a tangle, can't you? A tangle of emotion and thoughts and what if this happens? Like you say, it can be so intense. You kind of got to slow it down if you can, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when did you decide to come out with your story?
Well, I started to kind of really start to speak out about my story about 2 years ago. I joined Twitter on a complete whim. I didn't make my account with the purpose of it being a big account for mental health, surprisingly. I wanted to make YouTube videos, and I wanted to make them about mental health and stuff like that. And that was just going to be my space to say, hey, I put a video up today, why don't you go watch it, kind of thing.
Right.
And eventually, over time, it kind of started to grow. And through my videos and as well through kind of making friends on Twitter and all sorts, I've met some incredible people on there, really inspiring. I've gathered the courage to kind of open up, share my story, and just, be a part of that narrative. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the community on Twitter is unbelievable. It really is. And, gratefully, the trolls have kind of weeded themselves out.
But it's funny, as I was thinking about this, in regards to trolls, I was thinking, have they really taken a step back, or have I just figured out who they all are and they're all blocked?
Yeah, maybe you figured them out. Maybe you figured it
right.
out. I think it's difficult, right, with trolls on Twitter, because a lot of the time they seek to just tear people down that are doing well. I've tried to make a point of it too. If ever I get a hate comment, which doesn't happen as often as it used to, thankfully, but whenever I do get one, I make a point of asking how their day was. I don't respond to it. I'm just like, how was your day? How are you feeling today? And a lot of the time I get tirades of my day was absolutely rubbish. I'm going through this and going through that. It's really tough. It's amazing how many people turn to Twitter anonymously to just completely vent their grief or their pain, or it's so difficult. But other people, especially people like that do what we do, or lifting others, nobody deserves that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that really does make a difference. That was one thing I saw. I know you're not a fan of her, babe, but Sarah Silverman got attacked by this guy. It was like last year sometime. She got just completely attacked by this guy on Twitter. And instead of lashing back out to him, she engaged to him and asked, and did kind of the same thing you do, Beth. Just, what's going on with you? How's your day? And by the end of it, the guy apologized. They became friends, and just, it was really kind of an inspiring thing, and it's just really, she's kind of an interesting person. I'll give her that,
She actually suffers with bipolar herself.
Yeah, so, it's just, it's really, really cool. She's a rather interesting person,
I don't, dislike her. I just, she's just there.
Yeah, she just doesn't fall in your wheelhouse,
Yeah, you can't put your finger on it.
Yeah.
I forgot what I had a question when it slipped my mind. So.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's not your fault.
I do that a lot. I screw her up.
I think I know what it was.
Okay.
You have the I can't remember how to say it either, but the one condition that you mentioned, and then you were dealing with the anorexia. Were you ever diagnosed with depression, anxiety, of the like?
Yes, yeah. I eventually, when I got to about 15, my parents forced me to go to the doctor because it was quite clear that, I mean, I wasn't functioning as a person at all. I was staying in bed. I was avoiding school. Well, I'd leave to go to school, and I'd watch my parents drive by to go to work, and then I'd turn around and I'd walk back home. So I wouldn't go to school. And it was quite clear that I was really struggling. My attendance was low. It was really bad. So I went to the doctor, and he did prescribe me. He did say, you know, you can go on some medication if that would help, but we think that you've got mild depression, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and he did just, you know, for the record, say you've also got anorexia and emetophobia as well. So yeah, I did get the piece of paper, you know, with it all on. But yeah, I mean, it was nice to have that in a way. It put it in black and white what I was going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing with getting a diagnosis is, you know, you're not quite wondering so much, you know, what the hell is wrong with me. You're more okay. Well, now that someone else has figured out that I might have this, and that going on, now I can take steps to treat it. You know,
yeah.
And that's a big thing. You know, it gives you a little bit of power.
Yeah, definitely. I love that.
Yeah. Power. So I have a question for you, Miss Beth.
Okay.
You have a YouTube channel that is very popular. Would you tell us about it, please?
Of course, I would love to. I do have a YouTube channel called Miss Anxiety, which obviously is the same name as my Twitter name. I, again, started it on a whim, the same way I did with Twitter, really. I didn't ever expect to gain as much of a following as it has. But yeah, I needed a place to kind of share what I was going through. I mean, I started with the idea of doing blogs, just like, hey, I'm feeling this way today, and I've got these conditions, and if you've got those conditions, you're not alone, same kind of thing. And then eventually it kind of progressed into I wanted to do videos about my conditions and, you know, the symptoms and what I do to help myself with it and stuff like that. But yeah, and then eventually it kind of turned into another thing where at the moment I'm kind of going and visiting as many advocates as I can and just sharing all of their work. So it's nice how it's kind of changed over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Joe is stepping aside for a moment to deal with our four-legged friend, so he will be back with us. But I will take on the role of the only host.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, girl power.
Yeah.
Even though, excuse me, losing my voice, but if someone was looking to get into doing YouTube videos and wanted to tell their story that way, do you have advice for someone in that position, or
absolutely.
Just whether
I think it's quite important. It's important not to overthink it. I think it's something, you see these YouTubers, the really popular ones with millions of followers, and they all do things all perfectly. They've got the great lighting, they've got the backdrop, they've got everything going on. So I think the most important thing is to just be authentic, just be yourself. YouTube doesn't have to be that big, kind of glamorous space. There's lots of really important videos on there that maybe don't have millions of views, or there's lots of important people on there that don't have millions of followers. It's really important. So yeah, I would definitely say don't overthink it. Just you can do it on an iPhone even. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just put yourself out there, and I promise you it will pay off for sure.
That's good advice. Now, how about? Gosh, I'm so sorry that I'm losing my voice here.
Oh no!
Beg your pardon. As far as getting the word out, and which social media channels do you think have been the best for you as far as trying to get people to come and take a look at your channel?
I think Twitter has been incredible. That was really surprised me because I didn't know how to use Twitter at all. For a millennial, I am terrible at technology. And so I guess Twitter is the best place. It's like a really global place to be. You know, that everybody can get to you. Instagram's been interesting. I'm still not sure that I've got the hang of it yet, but that's quite fun. But I'm not sure I get as many people on there. But yeah, Twitter is just a wonderful, wonderful place to be. You can reach a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, even though I will preface my compliments about Twitter with this statement that if you're truly at a point where you are really, really struggling with something, maybe, you know, God forbid you're dealing with suicidal thoughts or what have you, you know, Twitter is a wonderful place, and there are a lot of great people, but there's also the possibility that you could reach out, and I've seen it happen where someone will post something on their page, you know, I think I just want to end it all or something like that, and they don't get any responses, you know, and it's not necessarily because people are, you know, it's a heck with you, I don't care. It's just that you're not getting it out there at the exact right time, and you know the chips didn't fall where they needed to, and it makes it very hard, because then you can feel even more alone and, you know, like you've got nobody to turn to. So whenever I start talking about whenever I start talking about Twitter and how great it is, I always want to add that in there in case anybody is listening that thinks that, you know, you can go on there and get immediate help. Yes, sometimes you can, but sometimes it might not work out for you. So just use social media wisely, I guess is the statement that I have as far as that goes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to protect yourself, haven't you, sometimes? I mean, there's specific words that I have kind of muted on Twitter. That's a really good thing to do if you're kind of struggling. Just mute the specific words that are going to be triggering or what have you. But yeah, it's super important, like especially after a therapy session. I avoid all social media at all costs, just because I feel really kind of vulnerable at that moment. I think it's really good to pay attention to that.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that completely. I personally don't go to therapy, and I know this sounds terrible, but I've never found that it actually works for me. So I like hearing when people are successful with their therapy. That makes me have more faith in the profession, because I've experienced some really bad therapists. Let me tell you.
Really? I kind of want to ask you about that. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like what happened? What made you kind of feel that way about it?
Well, the last therapist I had fell asleep while I was talking.
What?
Yeah, she fell asleep.
Oh my God.
I take Joe to all of my appointments, and he was sitting there on the couch next to me, and I looked at him and he looked at me, and I sort of slowed down talking a little bit, and then I kind of let it go silent, and then she sort of acted like she was awake and started talking again, but I know she was asleep. And, you know, I've had some, what's the word I'm looking for? I've had some male therapists that didn't want to talk to a female, really. They more talk to Joe than they talk to me. Joe actually had a therapist, and I don't talk about this a lot because it was a good participating factor in my attempts at taking my life in 2013, and that was Joe's therapist actually called me and reamed me out and told me not to put my husband through all this stuff.
Oh
so,
my God.
You know, this is a professional person, knowing, you know, he's gone to her and said that his wife is suicidal. She calls me up and tells me to stop it, essentially. So
that is horrific. I don't blame you for feeling those things about therapy after hearing about what you've been through.
Yeah, for sure. So,
oh,
you know,
wow.
so, and honestly, when I, you know, way back, maybe 20 years ago, when I did have a nice therapist that, you know, I liked for the most part, it just didn't help. You know, it always made me feel worse, and there was never any relief it was just made me feel like crap, So
yeah,
but
I think
anyway,
that's
enough
the same
about
thing with recovery, isn't it? Because it's all, recovery is different for every single person, isn't it? That's amazing to hear. I'm really sorry that you went through that. That really sucks.
Yeah, thank you. It gets to you a little bit, but you learn how to process your emotions better, I think, when you're kind of forced to do it on your own, and you become more self-aware, and like I have my marriage, and Joe is an extremely powerful force in my life, and whenever I feel like I'm going down, or about to be in the depression, or anxiety, whatever it is, I can always reach out to him, and that's been a huge benefit. So
I have the power.
he's back from tending to our little baby there.
Yep.
So Hope, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you Hope. I mean Beth. Many apologies. Many apologies there.
It's been a long day already.
Yeah, it has. Do you still struggle at times now? And what do you find that helps you, get back to a place of positivity?
Yeah, I most definitely still do have my days where I'm not quite 100%. I think in recovery as well, it's been a real roller coaster, and I expected recovery to be like wonderful, beautiful things, like rainbows and unicorns and all that kind of stuff, and it didn't quite work out that way. It's just been kind of learning to go up and down and get used to that kind of route. But yeah, I still find it a little bit difficult sometimes when I am struggling to really be open about it. I think sometimes I get stuck in that mindset that I am in recovery, so I can't have bad days because I'm not supposed to be where I was. So yeah, I think the things that bring me back to being, a positive outlook and some stuff like that, social media is a really incredible tool. And on my Instagram particularly, I follow a ton of accounts with positive quotes, law of attraction, stuff like that, just really things that just raise up your spirits a little bit. And if I'm having a bad day, I just go through all of that, scroll through that, and usually that helps to bring me back to some kind of center, really.
It's hard though, because once you come out with something positive, or like for your example with your YouTube videos, maybe you come out and it's a positive video and you're doing well, and then maybe the next day you're not doing so well. It's hard when people start saying, well, you were fine yesterday. It's almost like you have a responsibility to the people that watch or listen or read, whatever the case may be. You have a responsibility to them to maintain this sort of even keel that you can't, there's no control over it with those of us that have these, chemical imbalances.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real struggle at times, and I think especially when you've got, an account that you use to communicate with people through, or you're sending out a specific kind of message, like a lot of mental health advocates send out the message about recovery and that it is possible, and that, things can get better, and it's all about climbing that recovery mountain. So a bad day, it can almost make you feel like you're putting your bad energy or bad feelings onto other people, and I really, really struggle with that sometimes. But I think in feeling that, if you can reach out, if you can maybe tweet or do a video or, do a podcast or whatever you do, and share what you're thinking, usually the amount of love and support that you get back from people is just what you need at that point. So yeah, I mean, it's up and down, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. That's, there's a great support system out there, like I said before, on Twitter, and we've seen it. Beck's had a bad day, she'll post about it, and like within seconds she's getting responses back from people that have become incredible friends
Mm-hmm.
through Twitter.
We've met some amazing people, yourself not excluded.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense.
You didn't?
No, including her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not excluded.
I heard it the
That doesn't
right
make
way.
sense?
Okay, as long as you heard it the right way, Beth, that's all I care about.
That doesn't make sense. What's wrong with it?
I think I heard it wrong.
Oh, that's
I am sorry.
Okay, Beth, you are included in that.
Thank you. I'm really grateful, honestly. You too.
My head hurts.
She and just to give myself a little pat on the back, Beth is also a Keep Talking MH supporter.
Yes.
So that is wonderful.
Yes.
I love the hashtag, absolutely. I think it's one of those ones that I've got even saved in my phone, especially for a bad day. It's such a good way to connect with people kind of instantly about how you're feeling. It's fantastic. I love what you guys do.
Oh,
thank you. So
we love what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. We sure do. Do you have any advice also for anyone that has been recently diagnosed, whether it be with the anorexia or anxiety or anything? Do you have any advice that you hand out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's quite a bumpy ride to get that diagnosis usually. And I think when you've got the diagnosis, you almost think that, okay, now I know what this is. I should be able to fix it. And I mean, I definitely did this. I got so focused on fixing the problem that I started to become really nasty to myself. I didn't give myself a break, like, at all. It was really bad. And if you're not careful, you can create that negative self-talk and that self-hate, and you can become quite a nasty person to yourself. So I would say, if you've just been diagnosed, if you've just kind of entered this crazy world of recovery, or finding out what is the problem, just be gentle with yourself. Just be honest with as many people as you can, and just remember how hard you fought, because we're all warriors in this big group of people that have suffered. So just be your biggest supporter.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Sometimes you have to remind yourself of that. I've actually had to do that with Beck before. She'll be having a bad day and she'll be telling me stuff and beating herself up, and I'm like, hey, treat yourself with kid gloves. You're dealing with an illness that you can't control. That is pervasive, that is insidious, and you're gonna have bad days along with the good days, and when you're having bad days, it's okay to be kind to yourself, and just treat yourself with kid gloves. You can't get up and clean up or whatever, that's fine. If all you can do today is breathe, that's fine. If anybody else has a problem with it, that's not your hang up, that's theirs. And that's another important thing too to realize, is that everybody's going to have an opinion, and it doesn't, opinions are like a-holes. Everybody's got one.
I love that.
So you do what you do and you live your life, and if people don't like it, that's their problem, not yours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I think I found it quite difficult, especially after I've been diagnosed. You're so right. Everybody has an opinion on what you should do. Like, should you go to therapy? Should you be on medication? And it almost, your illness can sometimes become like a talking point for a lot of people, especially family, in my case. But yeah, you have to do what is right for you, 100%. I really agree with you.
Exactly. That's the most important thing. We only get one go around in this life. That's one thing I'm learning as I start my 45th year on this planet. And you have to do what's right for you. And you're going to disappoint people, and you're not going to be everything to everybody. But at the end of the day, you have to be happy with who you are as a person. And if you're not, then you have to figure out what those measures are that you have to take to get to balance in your life. You know, and sometimes you have to shove out those outside voices that are telling you you're not good enough or what have you. And sometimes you have to shove out the voices that are inside you telling you you're not good enough and whatnot. And that's what a lot of us wrestle with, you know.
Absolutely.
Beth, how do you think that we're doing as a community to put an end to stigma?
Oh, I think it's just an incredible place to be. Genuinely, I have never come across such a diverse group of people. It's really incredible. Everybody's doing something, and it's all kind of relevant to their talent or what they're passionate about. It's really, really incredible. I never had read a blog before I joined the community. I didn't, I know many people who have podcasts and, who are YouTubers as well. It's just an incredible thing to keep. We've got to keep this, momentum going because we really are making a difference.
We are. That's the thing is you look at 10 years or even 5 years ago, how, mental illness was discussed or more importantly, not discussed, and now it's becoming part of the conversation, and it doesn't matter if it's anxiety or anorexia or bipolar disorder or, straight depression or DID the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And the fact that we can talk about it now and not talk about it in hushed tones like, oh my God, but actually have a full-on dialogue about it and have it be something positive, that's huge. It's so great.
Yeah, it's massive. I even noticed the difference since, being in school, which wasn't even that long ago. It was about 10 years ago that I was really struggling with it. And, teachers used to get really frustrated at me. And, there was a group of kids that seemed to be really struggling kind of with their mental health. And, we were kind of actively called the special kids, So, like, things have really changed. We're not being branded that same way, which is absolutely brilliant because, we are all equal, whether we have mental illness or not. That's a really important thing.
Yeah. And that's not to say there isn't still ignorance out there. By all means, there is. I run into it on a daily basis, but it's, being able to address it now as opposed to just turning away and ignoring it. That's the important thing, and, that and education comes down to it too, and I think more strides need to be made with that, but you're starting to see it now. I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, at first I was kind of put off by all these actors and such that were coming out and saying that they've dealt with mental illness because I don't know, it felt like it was
disingenuous.
Yeah, getting to be sort of a bandwagon that everybody kind of jumped on, and it just, I don't know. I had a weird feeling about it from the start, but I'm starting to see now how people like The Rock and even Lady Gaga, her speech that she made at the last award show gets circulated all the time, I'm starting to see where there's a positive aspect to it, and that people think, well, hey, if this guy who has millions of followers and makes all this money and everything can come out and be honest about what he's been through, then maybe I can too. So I see it as more of a positive thing now than I used to, but I don't know, there's still that little bit of a sense of who's next, kind of like who's going to be doing it this week, sort of thing.
Yeah, I definitely understand why you'd feel that way. I think sometimes people worry that it might romanticize the whole idea of mental illness and mental health and stuff like that. But yeah, I see it in both ways, And again, I guess it's our job to remember that celebrities are people as well. You know, we're all just, whether you've been in a movie or not, you're still on the same level as another person, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So,
go ahead.
You want me to ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, Beth, where can that's what we do. Where can people connect with you online?
Oh, yeah. Well, Twitter is usually my best place to get me. I'm spending a little bit more time away from it now, but I'm on there every couple of days. You know, I like to kind of spice it up a little bit. So, yeah, I'm on there. My handle is Real Miss Anxiety on there. And, you know, DM me or tweet me or whatever, or don't, you know, if you don't want to. But yeah, you can find me on there. That's probably the best
way. Okay.
Cool. And what I don't know if I missed this during the when I was away taking care of the Haley boos. What's the name of your YouTube page?
It's Miss Anxiety, just the same as my Twitter page and my Instagram page. Yeah, I like to keep the theme going.
That's good.
It's easier to remember that way, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I've got 100 different accounts, so. So what is next for you, Beth?
Yeah, good question. It's Mental Health Awareness Week next week, which is going to be quite intense, it sounds like. I've got quite a few different events that I'm going to. It's one of those weeks where I get opportunities and someone messages me and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that about 3 months before. And then they all end up one day after the other and I'm like, how am I going to do this? This is like intense. But yes, got a lot of wonderful opportunities coming up next week to raise some awareness, which is great. And then I'll just be uploading to my YouTube when I can. I've kind of taken a bit of a step back since starting recovery. I used to upload every single Friday, without doubt, and now it's more kind of, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, when I can, just taking the pressure off a little bit there. So that's really where I'm at, to be honest, at the moment.
Cool. Yeah, you have to do that. You have to get the self-care in there a little bit and realize, hey, maybe I need to back off on what I'm doing a little, and just for my own sanity. I get that completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. Well, self-care is one of those things that I'm still learning about, I think. So I definitely need to kind of insert some of that.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's especially when you were sort of raised a certain way. My mom, God bless her, miss her like crazy, but she would often complain that I was being lazy or something when I was really just trying to process what I was going through. So she didn't have a full understanding of it either, and I really wasn't very communicative when I was younger to explain what was going on. So
now when she's having a tough day and it's, hey, you need some self-care, it's being able to tell her it's okay that you're lying in bed just breathing.
Yeah. It's really hard for me. There's a huge guilt complex, but that's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
So I can definitely relate to that 100%. I have a similar issue. I always worry about being lazy. I worry about, the jobs that are piling up, like the dishes need doing and they've been there since the middle of the week, and all this stuff that just kind of piles up. And some days you just need to just take that break for yourself, for your sanity, as much as anything.
Exactly.
Well, we are getting down to the wire here. We're going to have to sign off pretty quickly, but Beth, we really appreciate you being on the show. It's been really good to talk to you and have a great conversation with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you
we're
so
so
much
happy.
for having me.
It was our pleasure, let me tell you.
And if anything, like we tell all of our guests, if anything comes up that a project or a specific speech that you do or just a foundation that you get involved with, anything, just send me a tweet and we'll see about getting you back on the show.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much. And maybe one day I'll come to America and we can do a vlog.
That would be great.
That would be awesome. We would welcome that for sure.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
All right, so stay on the line just for a moment, please. And we're going to sign out with Brandon Stansel with Hometown.
Been a while since I've seen you. Your one red light and Baptist steeple. The people here are hard to face. The memories harder to erase. Of all the things that make up what was home, it's funny how they make me feel alone. But I can't change it, and that's okay, 'cause I've learned to let it go. It's out of my control. It might sound crazy, but I should say thank you, 'cause now I finally know who I really am. And I'm made from my hometown. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard to talk to my old man. He doesn't seem to understand. And my mama don't know anymore. All these late night talks turned to fighting wars. Yeah, with all the things that make up what was home, it's funny how they make me feel alone. But I can't change it, that's okay, 'cause I've learned to let it go. It's out of my control. It might sound crazy, but I should say thank you, 'cause all the things you thought.
Join us next week as Rebecca and Joe continue to battle the stigma of mental illness. Follow us on Twitter at Voices for Change RJ and on Facebook at Voices for Change 2.0.